6:30 flight from Tel Aviv to Newark and then to Boston, which arrived Thursday evening, so I can get a good night's sleep, because early Friday morning I'm speaking in the Heilige Beis Yaakov in Boston, and then after I'm speaking in the yeshiva in Boston. So Friday morning I got a packed morning teaching in Boston, and I got up for Vasikin on Thursday morning. I rush at 6:45 to catch my taxi that's going to take me to the airport. I want to make sure I arrive there 3 hours early. But as I travel, there's a little bit of guilt feeling that I have, because that day I was going to miss the events of the century. You probably have read about it in Mishpacha magazine. There was called an Atzeres Tefillah. There was a Tefillah gathering for the Matzav, and every single part of Haredi Jewry was invited, and it was like a Haredi Coachella. How can I explain this to you, right? It's like it was a festival. You have all the Gedolim, everyone, Belz Rebbe, Visions Rebbe, Ger Rebbe, all the big Rebbes, all the big Rosh Hashivas, all the big Sephardic leaders. They're all there. They're all going to be there together with their flock, 500,000 strong, and Menachem Nissel is going to be on a plane to Newark, eating United Airlines food. That was plan A. Then my son calls me, Yaakov Yisrael, and says to me, Abba, you know that you have to be at the Atzeres. Is why? Because Rav Moshe Hillel Hirsch said, he's the Gadol Ador in Eretz Yisrael, he says, you have to be there with Mesiras Nefesh. He said that because our beloved government made sure that all the transports were shut down, the trains were not working, because they did not want to make it easy for us to get to this Atzeres. So what happened is Rav Moshe Hillel says, it doesn't make a difference, get there early while the trains are still out there, make sure you're there. They set up tents in Yerushalayim for people to learn, those that came early. And I said to my son, it's not happening. I am going to Boston. When Moshe Shapiro was alive, he would tell me, your job is to teach Torah in Boston, and that's it. We get on the road. As you all know, every trip to America begins on Kvish Achad, the holy, holy Kvish Achad. Honestly, I always say Tfilas HaDerech before I get on, because that's the most dangerous part of the trip. Forget about terrorism, forget about planes crashing. It's Israeli drivers that are the real fear that's out there. And we start driving with my driver. His name was Noam. And we're about 20 minutes into the drive when suddenly everything comes to a standstill. There's no crash. There's no terrorist incident. The cars all come to a stop. And we basically are stuck for literally 2 hours on Kvish Achad, and I arrive 1 hour before the plane is supposed to depart. My driver was doing what's called kasbah driving. Kasbah driving it's an Arabic term where he was going on the side and all kinds of, because he knew he had to get me on time for my flight. He was incredible. He was enjoying all the stress of making sure that he gets me there. I arrived with 1 hour. 1 hour should be enough. I see that I went to the wrong line, because I'm 1K. I've done 1,000,000 miles with United. I was supposed to go with the short line, but I went with everyone else. I figured I'm going to get on the plane, it's not a problem. As I arrive at the counters, where you put in your suitcases, you know that place where you put in the suitcases and you put your passport through and they check it and they tag your thing. Devara, why are you looking like you don't know what I'm talking about? It's called, in Hebrew it's called the dalpak. I don't know, it's probably the counters. I don't know what it's called. What? The check-in place, exactly. Thank you. As I get into the check-in, they say to me, I'm sorry, but we're closed. When you're closed, you're here. I says, I know it's closed, you're closed. It's what it is, 50 minutes before the flight. I don't know what they said, it's closed. So he said, it's ridiculous. The whole Boston community is waiting for me. And they said, I'm sorry, we're United Airlines. We thrive in being obnoxious. And basically that's what they said. Behind me there's also a few other people who was caught in the same traffic. They knew how to curse. They're like true Israelis. Everyone crazy, nothing, they're not moving. Okay, they have finished their job. They closed the whole thing, and it was like literally in my face. I was the first person not to get onto that flight. Now, I know what to do now. There's another flight this evening, but I'm going to miss all my classes in Boston. But I realize it's the curse of Rav Moshe Hillel. He says Mesiras Nefesh, it's Mesiras Nefesh. My wife Debbie says, no, you're staying in the airport, we're not risking anything. I says, no, I'm not. I'm going to the Atzeres. I get on the train, I walk in with my suitcases. It's jam-packed with all the yeshiva guys. They thought I'd flown from America. I instantly became a celebrity. And the Atzeres itself was something incredible. It was almost a perfect example of the unity of Klal Yisrael. For me, my favorite moment was when the Sephardic Rav Rashi did Sephardic Slichos. I lived out my fantasy. Anyone Sephardi over here? I don't know. I always wanted to go. Rachmin could probably do it much better than me, but the point is that I always wanted to do it. And suddenly I find myself doing Sephardic Slichos. I look around me, and there's like visions of Hasidim, and they're belting away the Sephardic blues, and there's like brisker yeshiva guys, and everyone's singing together, and this was incredible. It also was pretty cool, davening mincha with a few 100,000 Jews, saying Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu with 500,000 Jews. It was an incredibly powerful experience, but there was a little part of me that felt it was incomplete, because as I was coming out of the train station, I saw a secular Jew, and I don't know why, but she stood right there in the middle with her middle finger up, basically saying, "We hate you." Okay, that was the vibe. And everyone else, sensibly just ignored it. But for me, because of my personality and because I'm always preaching the love of every single Jew, it pained me to no end. It said to me, no, there's something wrong going on over here. There's something that's missing over here. This is not all of Klal Yisrael. This is the Torah world that's being represented, but that's only part of what's going on. I had the same feeling on SImchas Torah. SImchas Torah this year was incredible. It was euphoria. The hostages had just come home. I spoke in my son's yeshiva on SImchas Torah night, and I said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's timing is incredible. It was exactly to the day, 2 years from where everything began. It was like insane in terms of timing. I quoted the pasuk, the medrash at the end of Parshas Vayeshev, that Vayhi Miketz Shnasayim Yamim Upara Choleim. Yosef had to be 2 extra years of punishment in the pit. He was a hostage under Hamas, but then it was Potiphar's prison, and then at the right moment, Paracholaim, and we come out. So the timing was impeccable. Why did I not feel good? What was bothering me over here? Just tell you how Menachem Nistel thinks. You don't have to think this way. You could think I'm strange. What haunts me is the story that I heard in the name of the Klausenberger Rebbe. It was told over, I'm pretty sure, by Reb Asher Weiss's father, who was with the Klausenberger Rebbe at the very end he was there throughout the war with him, but at the very end, they were doing a march. I think it was from Dachau, and finally the United States Army came to liberate everyone. And the Klausenberger saw the American soldiers, his saviors, his liberators, and he burst out crying. And Rabbi Weiss says it was the first time he saw his Rebbe cry during the war. After everything he had seen, after that, he'd gone through every single level of hell that you can imagine, losing his family, being beaten up many times, and doing the marches and everything. The first time he saw him cry, why? Because what kept the fuel that kept the Klausenberger Rebbe going is that if you're going through the hell called the Holocaust, if you're going through Auschwitz and everything else, this must end with the Melech HaMashiach. There's no other way it can end. It's got to end with the Melech HaMashiach. But it didn't. It ended with the American troops. So obviously we're incredibly grateful. This is not what he wanted. He wanted the real thing. He wanted the Melech HaMashiach. If you were to ask me 2 months ago, what I wanted more than anything else was that the hostages should come home through the Melech HaMashiach. I didn't want any other way that should happen. I didn't want the United States president to come in and say, you know what, I've had enough of this war, let's finish it. And that's what he did, basically. The most powerful man in the world, he bullies everyone. A couple of days later, he gets everything done. I have a lot of hakaras hatov to him. End of the day, that's not what we wanted. We wanted the real thing. We wanted the Melech HaMashiach. We wanted Achdus in all of Klal Yisrael. So the job is not finished yet, and we all have this sneaking feeling that it could easily get worse very quickly once again. The story is happening. We have been chosen to be that generation, to go through Golus Yishmael. And this is exactly where we are, and everything is going according to the textbook, this very, very difficult period in Jewish history. So I want to make my big statement. I warned you I'm going to be controversial now. Everyone take a deep breath. Okay, if you want, you can have some delicious fruit just to keep you going. But I want to say what I want to say. I believe, and I'm dedicating this next segment of the class to the new mayor of New York, who was voted in yesterday. I want to say the following thing. I want to say, if my Rebbeim taught me something about how to read world politics, both Rav Wolbe and Rav Shapiro would say again and again and again that you need to remove the white noise of politics and focus on what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying to us. They would both say it in their own ways. Rav Wolbe would repeatedly quote Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, "Bekamim elai mereim tishmana oznai." We say this in davening. When my enemies come up against me, let my ears listen. Says Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, what is God telling us? What is HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying to us? Rav Shapiro, in his own way, would always say, stop reading the newspapers, start reading Chazal. Chazal tell you everything you need to know about the tkufa that we're going through. Take out all the noise and focus. What is HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying to us? I'm not going to do this now because it's not the topic, but last week to my yeshiva bachrim, I gave a class on the difference between a baskol and what's called nichush, nun, yud, ches, vav, shin. How can you read Hashem's messages? How do you know? Maybe you're distorting it. Maybe it's what's called nichush, is a Torah prohibition, that you're not allowed to look and see something happening and say, oh, this is a message for me. For example, like a stupid example, you see a black cat crossing your path, and you say today is going to be a bad day, Issa d'oraisa. But Eliezer, when he said that if this thing happens and that thing happens, I found the right shidduch for Yitzchak Avinu, that was okay. What's the difference? It's not for now. It's an incredibly subtle thing. But sometimes Hashem is, He's in your face. And all you have to do is just open your eyes, listen to what He's saying, and everything else becomes clear. I think there are people in this room that came with me to Poland. Is that right? And a bracha for a few of you. Okay, you all came with me to Poland. If you remember the first day, I give my opening Poland speech, and I say the following statement. And I believe in this. No one else talks this way. I'm not trying to show off, but this is me saying how I feel. Anyone that goes to Poland creates this triangle. All right, what's the triangle? Klal Yisrael. Then there's Hashem, which is the spiritual dimension, and then there's the bad guys, there's the Nazis. Sometimes the triangle becomes a square. You talk about the Poles and the Ukrainians and the Lithuanians and the Hungarians and how they collaborated. Sometimes it becomes a pentagon. You can start to see where were the British, where were the Americans, what was going on. And it's important to study, and just like it's important for you to read the news. You can't be ignorant. You need to know what's going on. But then you need to step back and get rid of the triangle, get rid of the square, get rid of the pentagon. It's just two things involved. Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and nothing else. Why? Because Ani Ma'amin ben Munah Shalema, that no Nazi can hurt a Jew without a decree from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every bullet has an address. Every concentration camp has an address. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's using a stick. The stick is our enemies. But we have to understand it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu behind it. How can HaKadosh Baruch Hu allow evil? That's why you guys went to seminary. Okay, Tzaddik V'Ralo, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? How does he run his world? I've given many classes on this topic, but at the end of the day, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot allow anyone to do something evil against a Jew unless there is a decree beforehand, which causes you to rethink and recalculate everything. There's no Hamas, there's no Hezbollah, there's no Iran, there's no Houthis, there's no anti-Semites in this world. When I was going through Europe in the summer, I was in Spain over Pesach, I was in Italy in the summer, and for some reason I look Jewish. Do I look Jewish? What is it, my nose? What makes me look Jewish? But for some strange reason, everywhere I go, people feel very comfortable to scream at me, "Free Palestine." We had it in Poland, we were just now in Poland, right? We had it in Krakow, I was screaming, we had it in Warsaw. People like to go to Rabbi Nissel and scream, "Free Palestine." Now, I keep my mouth shut. Secretly, I want to scream back at them, we're working on it, we're trying our best. There's only so much that Tzahal can do. But at the end of the day, I step back and say to myself, if someone screams to me, free Palestine, Kadosh Baruch was talking to me. Kadosh Baruch Hu took this idiot, not Iran's useful idiots, as Bibi says, it's Kadosh Baruch Hu's useful idiots. Kadosh Baruch Hu takes them to quote from the Medrash in the beginning of Parsha Shemos. All of anti-Semitism is when Klal Yisrael do things, not all of them, but one of the huge, big sources of anti-Semitism, which is what's happening today, is not just Esav Soinis Yaakov, not just the Sinai from Har Sinai, but it comes from assimilation. When Klal Yisrael started to assimilate into the Egyptian Empire, so what does Kadosh Baruch Hu says? Hafach libam lisna esam. It's a pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Hey. Kadosh Baruch Hu artificially takes our enemies takes our friends out there and flips them over and makes them enemies. It's a crazy thought. Hafach libam. What does hafach mean? And hafach libam means that yesterday I loved Jews, tomorrow I'm going to hate Jews. All right, think Candace Owens. And if my chavrusa, Tzadik Zichron Livracha, once told me, 2-3 years ago, about there's this incredible woman who says things straight, and she's very smart, and you should listen to her or whatever he said. And then suddenly, overnight, she goes and does a 180 and hates the Jews and says the most ridiculous, crazy claims. And this is happening everywhere. Suddenly, everyone hates us. So when everyone hates us, you have to realize it's not them. These people don't hate us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes them and artificially puts into their head reasons to hate us. So everything that's happening in the world today is absolutely HaKadosh Baruch Hu behind everything. There's a step back for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Galus Yishmael. Galus Yishmael has to look like this. 2,000 years ago, Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, the famous Medrash, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, the teacher of Rabbi Akiva, he writes down in Perek Lamed Aleph, he says, before Mashiach comes, there's going to be a final Galus. Who's the final Galus? The final Galus is going to be Yishmael. Reb Chaim Vital, 500 years ago, describes in great detail on Tehillim Kuf Kaf Dalet and brings down the following words. There's 4 major Galios, but at the end of days, there's going to be a 5th one, quote, Kasha Mikulam. It's going to be more difficult than all the others. Ramesh Shapira explained because Yishmael has the Kayach of Tefillah. They play dirty, they play on our own turf. And all of these things have been predicted. I don't want to sound Mr. Doomsday, but I am. A couple of months ago, I said to everyone, New York's going to have a Muslim mayor. Why? Well, you know politics? You know what's going to go? How do you know they're going to have a Muslim mayor? I said, what do you think, just London has a Muslim mayor? It doesn't make any sense that if there's Galus Yishmael, the Galus Yishmael would only be in Europe. England, my hometown London, is Muslim. Paris is Muslim. Berlin, Muslim. Italy, which was the safest place for me to take my students 2 years ago, 3 years ago, suddenly everyone hates you. Spain, taken over by the Muslims. East Europe is, ironically, the safest place to go. Okay, it's like it's the weirdest world that we live in. If you want to go to a place that's safe, where you're not going to be free Palestine, you go to Hungary or Czech Republic. Doesn't make any sense, except for the fact that Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Galus Yishmael, it's going to happen. It's the last story that precedes the Melech HaMashiach. Galus Yishmael cannot possibly be just in Europe. It's you guys, it's your time. This is your time. This is your time. You have to join the club that we Europeans have gone through, Reva, and welcome to Galus Yishmael. You need to suffer as well. So don't say to me, oh, I'm going to move to Eretz Yisrael. You want to move to Eretz Yisrael, you don't move there because there's less suffering. It's not safer in Israel. It's not safer in Israel. You go to Eretz Yisrael because if you want to go through Galus Yishmael, do it with your brothers and sisters. That's why. But it's definitely not going to be safe in Eretz Yisrael. Trust me, okay? I have 2 grandkids in therapy from the Iran war. It's not fun. It's not fun in Eretz Yisrael either. This is what Galus Yishmael is supposed to look like. Galus Yishmael, as the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim says, that the hallmark of Yishmael, he doesn't talk about tefillah, he talks about sheker. They are the purveyors of false narratives. So, why does everyone get upset when the BBC calls up the Hamas health ministry, right? You think a Hamas health ministry, people in, professionals in white outfits in some advanced medical center. No, these are little rats. I'm sorry for being rude to rats, right? That live there in sewers, and they decide, today, the Israelis murdered 200,000 children for no other reason, because that's what Jews do. The BBC, 200,000. No, maybe by now it's 220,000. So everyone, this is the world we're living in. It's kulei sheker. Today, HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up the world that American youth, they don't follow mainstream news, they just follow their podcast and they follow their social media. And there, if you think, oh my gosh, Ben Shapiro, he's so cool, he gets like 50,000 hits. So the Ben Shapiros on the other side of Yishmael get 5 million hits. 5 million hits. And they're all purveying the same sheker. So stop getting upset about what you're reading. It has to be. This is what Galus Yishmael is supposed to look like. The only question that matters is, what are we supposed to be doing about it? It's the only question about it. We are in a very, very difficult period in history. Hashem has to tell us what to do. And He does. He gives us messages all the time. You just get so busy with the white noise and reading the papers and looking what's going on, we forget Hashem is talking to us. Let me give you the Menachem Nissim narrative of how He's talking to us. Again, there are other things that Gedolim are saying. I'm not Chas v'Shalom going against it, but let me see how I see things. This is how I see things. When did the war begin? What day? Shabbos. Okay, so I actually have another class where I focus on the fact that it's Shabbos. I spoke last night in Great Neck for the Shabbos project, and I focus on Shabbos. Last night I called it Shabbat. That was what was obvious was Simchas Torah. Simchat Torah. Okay, it was a very unusual date for a catastrophe of this thing to begin. It was an extraordinary date, Simchas Torah. It was one side, it was terrifying, and the other hand, it was incredibly encouraging. For me, it was an incredibly beautiful simon of what we have to do and how we're supposed to get there. Why? Because Simchas Torah is an incredible Yom Tov. Simchas Torah is the Yom Tov that I call the day after Yom Tov. When everything ends, we celebrate with Simchas Torah, meaning Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkos. All the Torah festivals ends with the Shana Rabbah. It's the big ending. The day after, what do? You dance. What are you supposed to think about when you dance? Bracha, what do they think about in your wedding when you dance? Nothing. Pure, unadulterated simcha. That's the way it's supposed to be. The Arizal has mystical kavanos for every single chag. Both the Torah ones and the rabbinical ones, everything has what to think about. Including Lag BaOmer, Tu B'Shvat, everything, Chanukah. But not Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah, the word kavanah means deep Kabbalistic thoughts that you're supposed to connect to at that particular day in the Jewish calendar. Not when it comes to Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah is just pure, liberated joy. How do we do that joy? We imitate what's going to happen at the end of days. And we imitate what already happened at Har Sinai. Allow me to explain. The centerpiece of Simchas Torah is forming a circle around the bima. We form a circle. We don't dance around the bima alone. We dance around the bima with HaKadosh Baruch Hu holding Sifrei Torah. Nagila v'nismacha Bach. Bach is the Sifrei Torah. It's the 22 letters of the Torah. Bach is Gematria 22. But you have a bima in the middle, and the bima represents both the mizbeach in the Mishkan, right, in Har Sinai, in the Mishkan and in the Beis HaMikdash, and ultimately, says the Ramban, in the beginning of Parashas Truma, it goes all the way back to Har Sinai, where Klal Yisrael was surrounding Har Sinai, forming a circle. What's the idea of a circle? The circle is the way that we express ki ish echad b'lev echad. Who's the most important person in the circle? What do you say? Who's the most important person in the circle? It's a trick question. No one. The Rosh Yeshiva and the weakest guy in his yeshiva are all part of that circle. We're all making it together. Okay, you're right. There's more special people, but once a circle means everybody is completely and totally equal. No one stands out in a circle, unless you're bracha, you're the kala, right? But the kala is imitating the same thing. The whole idea of a Yiddish chasna, what you went through, was it 2 years ago? I'm losing. Blianar, time flies. Okay, when you're a kala, so the kala represents the Shechina, and everyone dances around, and it's a different type of dance. It's called a machol, right? It's not a rikud. Rikud means you jump up and down. A rikud is what you do in front of the kala, but the machol means that we reach a sense of completion, a perfect circle. Everything is round each other. Everything is exactly in perfect harmony, the way it's supposed to be. At SImchas Torah, we imitate what it's going to be like at the end of days. What's it going to be like at the end of days? The tzaddikim means every single one of you in this room. You and you and you, all of us are the tzaddikim. It doesn't mean just the super tzaddikim. It means from the word tzedek, the ones who have justified to be in that circle, which is everyone in this room, without exception. And you create this circle around the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you point to Kiviyachol, to the Shechina, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you say, Zeh Hashem, Nagila, Nagila v'nismecha bach, we are dancing with you. And that is the great dance that is symbolic of Klal Yisrael being ki ish echad b'lev echad. Everything is perfect, everything is the way it's supposed to be. The way we had it at Har Sinai. At Har Sinai, the great joy at Har Sinai was that Har Sinai was in the middle, and Klal Yisrael forms a circle round. Again, everyone has their makom, but together you form the circle. Here's another thing I thought of. What was the most scary part of the 2 years of the war? It's still going on, technically speaking, but the 2 years of the war, of the last 2 years, the most scariest part for us Israelis was Iran. Now, we did not know when Israel declared war on Iran, where Iran had basically de facto been declaring war on Israel through their proxies all along. We did not know what Iran was capable of doing. Iran had thousands of missiles. Each one of them had the ability to destroy a whole block in your neighborhood. How do we know? Because the one that got in did exactly that. The one that got in, think about it, it's an incredible thing. One gets in, and suddenly, boom, I don't remember the numbers anymore. So you have to, 100 apartments get destroyed instantly. I just remember the story that one family ran out barefoot. There was big signs in the Israeli news. Remember, when you run out, when a missile's going to attack you, remember to take your shoes, because somebody didn't. And everything they had and owned, every nostalgia, everything that was precious to them was destroyed instantly, including their shoes and socks. It was the scariest thing. A lot of people died in that one missile that got in, and there were thousands of those missiles that could have taken out complete neighborhoods in Eretz Yisrael, and that's what they were designed to do. The fact that there were nisim v'niflos, my kids said that Abba was spared. I was in Poland at the time during the war. I felt terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I felt in Poland, and then I couldn't get back to Israel. Some of you remember my story, and I was crushed for two reasons. First of all, my wife and my children and everyone that was precious to me, all my loved ones, were all going through Gehenna. And on a personal level, I was stuck in Poland and had no one to do my laundry. So in typical Menachem Nisl fashion, I flew from Warsaw to Miami, where I have a son and a daughter-in-law, so my daughter-in-law could do my laundry, and I could, whatever. A lot of crazy, amazing things happened during that time. But bottom line is, the terror was there. When did it all begin? When did the Iran war begin? So I notice these things because Hashem talks. This is a bus call. It was the middle of Parshas Ba'alosecha, corresponding to the pasuk Vayhi bin Aaron Vayom Moshe, which is the switch between Klal Yisrael traveling the way they should travel and Klal Yisrael traveling the way they should not travel. Allow me to explain. Sefer Bamidbar is the Sefer of the Jewish people in motion. It's the Sefer of Klal Yisrael in Galus and Klal Yisrael going through Olam Hazeh. It begins with Bamidbar, Naso, the first half of Ba'alosecha, describes the Jewish people in perfection. What does perfection look like? Once again, the Mishkan's in the middle, and the Degalim are around. So you have, in the front, you have Yehuda, together with Yisachar and Zvulun. Then you have Reuven and Shimon and Asher, and then you have Yosef and Binyamin. Ephraim, Menashe, and Binyamin, and in the back you have taking up there is Dan, or it's the main one, together with Naphtali and Gad. That's the way it works. Everyone fits into their place around, and they travel together. All are ki'ish echad b'lev echad. Everyone focused on the Mishkan in the middle, and that came to an abrupt end. After that, Klal Yisrael fall apart. How does Klal Yisrael fall apart? Check it out. What comes immediately? Klal Yisrael complaining. We're Jews. What do we always complain about? Food. Where are my shopping girls? Okay, there we go. Okay, where's Miss Nis when you need her? Okay, they're complaining about food. But then it starts to heat up. Next parashat, the Meraglim. Everyone's saying Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. Then afterwards, we already get to Korach. And Korach is already Machlekes. Then the Klal Yisrael are fighting amongst themselves. We're talking about the Dardar. We lost it. We destroyed ourselves from within. By the time we get to Parshas Pinchas, you have Jewish boys, let's leave the women out of this, running after non-Jewish Midianite women. What is going on? What is happening over here? Everything crumbled, everything fell apart, all the unity fell apart. What was the switch over? Says Rashi, because Klal Yisrael left Har Sinai, Ketinaik habarech lebeis hasefer. Remember that Rashi? They ran out. Tavara, you for sure remember this. You guys for sure, right? Like a child running away from school. You can see them over here. You go, what's called Darchi Torah. You see them, the kids running out, they're so happy. It could have said like the teachers running out from school. But I don't think Klal Yisrael were that bad. It's like children. Now, why did they run away from Har Sinai? Why did they run away from Har Sinai? Obviously, you can be done with Kafschus. They ran away from Har Sinai because they wanted to get to Eretz Yisrael already and start keeping Torah mitzvos in Eretz Yisrael. So why was it so bad? So I can't go into this now because I want to talk about some very important things now. But I can prove this to you. It wasn't that they were running away from Torah. They loved Torah. They loved the fact that they could go to Eretz Yisrael and keep Torah. They were running away from what's called Ma'amad Har Sinai. If you remember on Seder night, we go, Ilu Kirvan Lifnei Har Sinai, it's enough that we got to Har Sinai, even without the Torah. Why? Because what do we achieve at Har Sinai? Was unity. Okay? We also reached that unity because we reached a level of faith. Cool. The Rambam says, everything was clarity. Everything was clear. Klal Yisrael were perfect. Klal Yisrael recreated the Garden of Eden. Ish echad b'lev echad means we basically became Adam and Chava before the Chet. Everything was perfect. Everything was the way it was supposed to be. That is what we disconnected from. That perfection of the Jewish people being one nation, that is exactly what we disconnected from. Are we all seeing a pattern over here? Because Baruch Hu is talking to us. What Baruch Hu is saying is that what you're supposed to be doing is creating unity, and instead you're falling apart. Instead everything is disintegrating. What we're disconnecting from is the possibility of getting to Ki'ish Echad B'Lev Echad, and which is why Baruch Hu started us off in SImchas Torah. Right, the simcha of Torah is to form this circle round and everything has to be perfect, which is right, the Iran war began on that disconnection in Parshas B'Midbar, where Klal Yisrael should have been in perfection round the Mishkan, and that disentangled. And we now have to figure out how to get back there. Antisemitism, which has reared its ugly head in the most unusual, extraordinary way, which shows it's clearly not them, it's God. When you think about it, when Iceland and Finland, you don't even know what these countries are on the map, admit it, okay? Iceland and Finland, no Jews, probably a Chabad house for the tourists, not for the locals, right? Iceland and Finland say, we are not going to the Eurovision Song Contest if the Jews are there. How do you know to hate us? Where did it? Ireland, right? Super rabidly anti-Semitic. Almost no Jews there. Where does it come from? Hashem wants them to hate us. Why? Because we don't have our act together. We're not forming the Jewish unity that we're supposed to be forming. We're not having the kavanah when we say Tekabashu for God l'cheretzenu, the Sanes l'kabetz g'liasenu, v'kavsenu yachad me'arba kanfus haaretz. We're not having kavanah, ask Mishpach Baruch to create that yachad the way it's supposed to be, that we're all in this together. So we have to fix that. We have to figure out how to get back there. The anti-Semitism is all one huge big finger from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is that Klal Yisrael is not doing it right. So I can't bring the Melech HaMashiach yet. So how are we going to fix it? The answer is in this room. And for those of you listening out there. But that's the way it's going to be fixed over here in this room. This is you guys are made out of the right stuff. I know you people. You got to fix it right here. So let me give you some ideas of how we're going to fix this. But first of all, I want to frame what Ahavat Yisrael is really like on a whole different level. Because when you say Ahavat Yisrael, so you think, okay, I love my fellow Jew. You smile at everyone. No. There's something much deeper going on in Ahavat Yisrael. And that is that somehow or other we have to recreate Ki'ish Echad B'Lev Echad. Let me show you how this works. There's a Gemara in Gittin, Daf Nun Zayin Amud Aleph. It's the story of how the Churban happened. How the destruction of the temple happened. By Sheni was what? Sinas Chinam. Everything fell apart because of Sinas Chinam. How did it happen? So the Gemara tells a story about a place called Tur Malka. Tur Malka was a mountain that was filled with Jews. Massive Jewish population. And the Gemara there describes that the Roman troops came in, 3,000 troops, and they were all, with their swords to commit a massacre. And it says over here that for 3 days and for 3 nights, 3 days and 3 nights, they massacred and they massacred and they massacred and they massacred and they massacred. So this is insane. The Gemara goes on to say the other side of the mountain, there was celebrations going on. It doesn't say, let's say it was a wedding. And there the Jewish people were celebrating. While on the other side of the mountain, Jews were being murdered. And what's going on over here? Why is the Gemara telling us that there was a wedding going on the other side? They obviously did not know what was happening, and the Gemara says, "V'lo yadi hani b'hani." This side of the mountain didn't know what was happening that side of the mountain. What's your point? What's the Gemara's point? If they would have known, they would have done one of two things: either flee, or maybe fight. But they didn't. They were dancing. They were just dancing away. So I understand that the Gemara is telling us the root of the root cause of the Churban, of what's going on over here. The Churban is that the Jews on the other side, there was no news, there was no social media, there were no people, they did not know what was going on, but they still should have known. Why? Because when Klal Yisrael is together, when the Ki'ish Echad B'Lev Echad, you know what's going on without anybody telling you. Like Rav Moshe Sternberg Shlita, one of the big Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael, he knew everything that was going on before it happened on what we call SImchas Torah. By the way, I just want to get this out of my system. I have a aversion from saying the word October 7th. I know that, Mishpacha magazine does it, even though I wrote a letter that was published about how October 7th is an offensive phrase. It feeds into the whole secular narrative of what's going on over there. October 7th is a secular, pagan, Christian date. October the 7th was celebrated this year by our beloved, and I say beloved without sarcasm, our holy brothers and sisters that don't keep Torah, and they held a vigil on October 7th, which was the first day of Simchas Torah. Shem Yirachem, Zman Simchaseina. So we're celebrating in our sukkah, and they're busy standing like this in Kikar Rabin. Shem Yirachem, we need to help these people. But my point is that what happened on Simchas Torah, the point I'm trying to, I lost focus for a moment. The point I wanted to make is V'lo yadi hani b'hani means that if the Jewish people are one, if they're unified, like Rav Moshe Sternbuch, he knew what was happening before it happened. He already, on Simchas Torah, before the news came out, he had a close to a nervous breakdown. He felt it, because he feels the pain of every Jew. Rav Moshe Sternbuch feels the pain. There were other occasions, he's in the middle of davening, he stopped everyone and said, we need to say Tehillim. And a few minutes later, they found out that there was a terrible terrorist incident, including a friend of mine's daughter in Harnof was murdered. We forget, because there have been so many incidents, we forget that thing. He stopped the davening and said, let's say Tehillim. No one had to tell him, because he felt the pain of another Jew, even though it wasn't happening. There's such a thing that you're so close to your fellow Jew, you know what's happening without having to know that it's happening. And it makes sense, because my whole body is aware. If you have a toothache, your whole body knows about it. At first glance, you say, what does my nose have in common with my toes? I mean, they both smell. But besides that, okay, there are different corners of who I am. Wrong. If you're one person, everyone feels, if somebody steps on your toe, your whole essence feels it. That's what it means, Ki'ish echad b'lev echad. That's what it means, a Jew feeling for another Jew. I have over here a crazy story. This is insane. By chance, I read the Torah of the Klausenberger Rebbe. For me, it's like, I can't begin to tell you, it's like oxygen. It's the purity of his Torah is so incredible. And the Klausenberger brings down a story. Parshas Noach, Tafshin Dal. You know what that is? 1943. 1943 means that the concentration camps in Poland were in full blast. The gas chambers were in full blast. And he's talking in Hungary, where nothing was happening. He gets up and he says, Zay gzera klalis al kol klal Yisrael. The gamanachnu b'klal gzera. It affects us. He wasn't telling them that the Nazis are going to come into Hungary and kill you all. He was saying what's happening in Poland should be like it's happening to us. He said, I managed to arouse the tzibor to the point that everyone started crying, everyone started saying slichos, everyone was falling apart. And then he writes the most horrible thing. He said, within a few days, everyone had forgotten my speech. Everything went back to normal again. And before they knew it, the Nazis came in and sent them all to Auschwitz. That's what happened. But v'lo yadi hani behani. This is Poland, we're Hungary. So this is insane. This is a story that just happened 70 years ago. Just one other story that is very powerful. I heard this from Rav Shapiro, that the Baal HaTanya, the Alter Rebbe, once saw his son holding a baby and while learning Torah. He was learning Torah with all his strength and all his koach. He didn't notice that the baby was crying. Maybe he wasn't holding the baby. Maybe the baby was in a pram. Was in a baby carriage. So the Rebbe's watching this, and he says, I'm going to tell off my son. He said, if you're learning so hard you don't notice a Jewish child crying, there's something wrong with your learning. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter if you fully focus. You hear the cries of another Jew. That's the way it has to be. That means you're learning, you're doing it right. I have many other stories, but once again, I need to cover ground over here. So we need to switch from what's called Sinai Chinam to what's called Ahavat Chinam. Is that right? Wrong. Rav Dov Kook, the day's Rav Kook, who's an anicle of the Rav Kook, said something crazy. I happen to have heard this from Rav Shapiro. I never said it over because I thought Rav Shapiro is the only one that said it. And then it turns out that Rav Nebenzahl says the same thing. The phrase Ahavat Chinam is a Christian concept. Now I know that a lot of very, 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 very big people use the phrase Ahavat Chinam. Ahavat Chinam is a catchphrase. It's a Christian concept. What does it mean? There's no such thing of loving a Jew for no reason. There's always a reason to love a Jew. Because I don't love my toes or my teeth for no reason. I love them because it's me. You can't love a Jew for no reason. It doesn't make any sense. The phrase Ahavat Chinam is senseless. You always love a Jew because he's a Jew. And he explained it goes deeper than that. Because every single Jew is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do we know? HaKadosh Baruch Hu breathed into us his breath, and the nations of the world lost that breath to a certain level, and we kept it on. We are, HaKadosh Baruch Hu and us are intimately connected. We're all, so to speak, on the deepest level, we're one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To the extent, how cool is this what I'm about to tell you? V'ahavta re'acha kamocha, what's the next two words? Ani Hashem. Right? V'ahavta re'acha kamocha, love the fellow Jew. What does kamocha mean? What does the Ramban say is kamocha? You learned this in seminary. Kamocha means that you know yourself, right? You know yourself. You know when your tooth is hurting. V'ahavta re'acha kamocha, like you know yourself. That's Ahavas Yisrael. By the way, v'ahavta kamocha also means that you know how you're feeling and your sensitivities. You got to figure out the sensitivities of your fellow Jew. I wish people would understand what it means for me to be British and feel sorry for me. I have all kinds of weird things, and if you care about me, then you will not go like this in front of me. Because for me, people that don't know how to use a tissue is offensive. Just like it's offensive to leave your dirty tissues in front of me. I've got issues. And Americans do it. They leave their dirty tissues around. And they say, don't look at it. Or they eat with their mouths open. Okay, and you see everything sloshing around. So us Brits, we can't deal with it. Eat with your mouth closed. But that's because you respect me. That's because you love me. V'ahavta re'acha kamocha. You feel my pain. But then I have to do the same thing for you. I have to, okay, so you guys are Americans. You like to talk loud. So just roll with it, right? Roll with your, just kidding, okay? Everyone just calm down. Just keep it. That's it. Yimitz Hashem, when those of you that are still waiting to get married, it's the first thing you learn in a marriage. That your husband has got things that don't make sense to you. You'll never understand a male craving for shawarma. Just like he will never understand your craving for salad. It doesn't make any sense to him. But if it's a Ahavat re'acha kamocha, he'll bring you salad for your birthday, because that's what you want, and you'll bring him shawarma. Why? What would you like?
I want the shawarma.
You want the shawarma. Okay, you're going to have a great marriage. What can I tell you? He's going to love you. So, I'm making light out of a very, very deep and important concept. That's what it means. V'ahavta re'acha kamocha. I have over here one more quote, and then I'm going to finish off the class by giving you a few ideas for you to take home with you. One more quote. This quote, it's actually a medrash on the parsha in the Torah that talks about choosing a king. And the medrash contrasts two kings, the good guy and the bad guy. Who's the good guy? Shaul HaMelech, the first king of Israel. Who's the bad guy? Achav. No one likes Achav. Achav his whole generation was over the Avodah Zarah. He used to persecute the rabbis. Shaul goes out into war. We all know what happened to him. Everyone was massacred. Achav goes out to war. All his enemies are destroyed in front of him. Why? You're the bad guy. You're the good guy. Achav should lose. Shaul should win. So the Medrash says is that in Achav's time, the Jewish people, they were over the Zarah, but you know what? They had respect for each other. In Achav's generation, there were no people in his generation that would, undermine the next person. The word that they use is dalturim. No one tattletaled on anyone else. And Shaul never had that. So Achov was invincible, was totally powerful, no one could stop him, because Klal Yisrael had Achdus, and he was a bad guy. But you got Achdus, you become impossible to destroy. No enemy can raise a head. Klal Yisrael has Achdus, Hamas, by definition, ceases to exist. Hezbollah ceases to exist. The anti-Semites cease to exist. Why? Because Klal Yisrael have their act together. So, I'm giving you a challenge. The first challenge is in tefillah, and the second challenge is in practice. In tefillah, I'm asking you to please, please, please expand your tefillos. Normally when I teach you tefillah, I always tell you be authentic. Whatever's on your mind, daven for. Whatever's really bothering you. Half of the room in front of me, I look into your head, you're thinking about shidduchim or schoolwork. Whatever it is, okay? This is the way, yeah, I'm right. Okay, kachazeh. The married people in front of me are thinking about paychecks. Okay, or their kid shidduchim, right? Whatever it may be, okay, whatever it is that stress us. We gotta rank up our game and start to feel the pain of every single Jew. Which means the second half of the Shemona Esrei, like I said, begins with the Kav Shofar Gadol. Kavsina Yachad, you need to mentally underline the word Yachad. It's about time we had that Yachad. I tell you where you should begin. There's 6 words that everyone in this room says every morning and every evening. 6 most important words ever said or ever written. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The first pasuk you ever said, Bez Hashem, the last pasuk you say on your 120th birthday, surrounded with loving generations. But everyone has kavana on echad, or whatever it is, okay? But maybe the word Shema. But what about that word Yisrael? Do you ever notice that word Yisrael? Shema Yisrael, Shema means I made a choice. Shema means it's an individual, I hear. The Maharal says the hearing is my bechira. Hashem, Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, is the essential Yud Gimel Ikrim of Jewish belief. Hashem means I believe in a creator, Elokeinu, who runs the world, with the Jewish people at the center of his plan, and he's hidden. And that's why there's prayer. And Hashem Echad is where the world is going to. The word Echad is directly connected to the Ish Echad, B'lev Echad that we were talking beforehand about, where everything is one. Everything becomes one. What's that word that we missed out? Shema Yisrael. What does it mean, Shema Yisrael? I have 2 dimensions. There's 2 parts of who I am. I was born at a certain date and I live 120 years, but I also begin with Avram Avinu and I end with the Melech HaMashiach. I also begin with Adam Rishon and end when the Chet of Adam Rishon is finally fixed. This is also who I am. And I take achrayus. So Shema, I as an individual, Yisrael, is part of this glorious nation called Klal Yisrael that's not separate from me. It's also me. It's part of who I am. It's like my body, every part is connected. Together we declare our Jewish faith, the Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So you need to have kavanah for that. Now, how do we change our behavior? I'm talking a little bit to myself, because everything I'm about to say to you now involves hard work. The first thing is what I mentioned to you, v'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, don't be annoying to other people. No, it's a basic thing. It's not your problem, Devorah. Just don't be annoying. Don't do things that upset the other people. Luckily, you don't live in Israel. In Israel, there's like a rule that every building has to have an annoying neighbor. It's like a fact. But don't you be that annoying neighbor. You always be considerate to others and how you park and how you do things and how you act. Always walk dignified. It's the Kiddush Hashem. Make sure that you're not a source of friction to anyone around you. And it's hard work, because we all know that if you take up space, you have personality and you're always going to rub people off. Make sure you're not doing that. Second thing, ask yourself, who is HaKadosh Baruch Hu putting in your life that you can enhance their lives? The answer is a lot of people. Everyone here, you got parents, you got siblings, you got classmates, you got co-workers, you got neighbors. It's people that you meet, people that you know. Ask you, how can I be the light in that person's darkness? I think about this in the L'Kaina Tzor. I say, before, when I finish my Shemona Esrei and I'm about to walk out to the big wide world, I say to myself, Hashem, give me the power of speech. I should say the right things. I should compliment people. I shouldn't say nasty things about people. Then I say, v'nafshi, my personality, ka'afar. Ka'afar should be earth. What does earth mean? Earth is something you plant in. Earth is something that you empower people with. Every person I meet, I should be a source of goodness in their world. I should be a light in their darkness. I should smile. I should compliment. I should be a listening ear. I should be anything I can to make people around me feel better. This is the hardest part of what I'm saying today, because we all know how difficult that is. But this is where you start. Fixing Klal Yisrael is where everything begins. And finally, to think about the world that's out there, especially people who are not your type, that are not your type. Stop and think. Anti-Semites, did they decide what kind of Jew you are? Did they say, are you Haredi, are you Tzioni, are you Sephardi, are you Chiloni? No. A Jew, you're a Jew. What did Bilam say? Hein am levadad yishkon. Right? You're on your own. You're separate from everyone else. You don't belong to America. You don't belong to England. You don't belong to anything. You're Hashem's people. You're different. The word levadad, this is my own thought, base, dalad, dalad. Base is 2, dalad is 4, dalad is 4, together means 10. Badad means a tzibur that's falling apart. Eicha yashra badad. We have to fix that. We have to recreate the power of tzibur. So that includes every single type of Jew, even the ones that are not your comfort zone. So it's a lot of fun, you know what I mean? You can sit here in Lawrence and you can send, packages to the Israeli soldiers. And you do a Sunday afternoon activities, let's do something for the soldiers. It's great. It's much, much harder to do it for the person that's in your face, that's not your type. I just said this over to, I'm not going to say to who, family member. I said to her, everyone likes to visit, when you're a teenager, everyone likes to visit an old age home. You bring your guitar, you play for the old folks. Hello, what about your grandparents? That's not cool. You don't do that with your friends. Okay, it's not authentic. If you care about the old folks, start with the people you're home. If you care about the Israeli soldiers, how about caring about the people in your community as well? Don't stop with you should keep sending them packages, there's no question. Keep sending them talis and tefillin and all the other beautiful things that we do. Keep doing it. But think of the people around you, the people that rub you the wrong way. This is where you need to think and stop and ask yourself, what can I do more? At that moment, you become part of the solution to bring the Melech HaMashiach. You're fixing the Hein Am Levada Yishko. You're recreating that circle around the bima that we had on SImchas Torah that reflects what we had in the Midbar, and reflects what we had at Sinai, and what we're going to have last at Lavo. And I want to finish off with one more personal statement. Okay, so I hope I'm convincing, but I want to tell you I'm talking to myself. All these things are so, so hard, and I'll prove it to you. At the beginning of the war, I did not know how to deal with the whole hostage thing. It was overwhelming for me. I just didn't know what to do. So I went to a wedding. What's her name? Reichman from Maor. No, Renee's sister. What? Raquel Reichman. And I went to a wedding, and there Huber Liff was giving out, everyone should take one name of a hostage. This is exactly what I was looking for. I wanted one name. I wanted to connect to one person, and then I could make it real. I wanted to daven for him or her like crazy. I took out a name, my friend Segev, Segev Kalfon was his name. And who is this guy? Segev Ben Galit, anonymous person. But you can go online, and I did then. I wanted to get a picture of him. I took a picture of him, not my type, was my first reaction. This little scary looking in the picture. He looked like the kind of guy, turns out he was a baker from Netivah. But first look at the guy that, that when you go to one of these automobile places for things to fix your car, is a guy that does stuff for you and you just want to get away from as quickly as possible. Also, they said in Jerusalem Post, what was his personality like? What does he do? What does he do? What's he all about? It said one thing about him. He loves to party. That's why he was in the Nova Festival in SImchas Torah. So first, I'm davening for this scary-looking guy who loves to party. And then it hit me. I'm such a hypocrite. Eretz Yid. He's a Jew. He's a Jew just like me. His grandparents were Har Sinai just like me. What am I thinking that way? He's not my type. So I made him my type. I forced myself. And I daven for him every day except for Shabbos. Constantly trying, whatever it is. And 2-3 months ago, he would have said to me, how's it going for Segev Ben Galit? I would say, I'm giving up hope. There's no way he's going to come out alive. And finally he comes out alive. My kids know I was davening for him. First thing they did was they sent me, when they announced that they were coming out, before they actually came out, they went to the families, and there was Segev's family. Guess what? All with their Tehillims. Guess what? I found out that they had donated a Sefer Torah in his honor, that he should be released. Guess what? The moment he comes out, they interview him, he shares his fantasy that kept him going while he was in captivity. They would stand before the Hamasniks and scream out the Shema. Boy, did I feel humbled and feel good at the same time. Baruch Hashem, he's out. I'm going to wait a while. Someone I would love to meet him and give him a hug and thank him for what he did for me. What he did for me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So, I just want to finish off that we have to keep on doing whatever we can. We can't possibly just stop what we're doing. We've got to look for opportunities to be v'nafshi ka'afal hakol tiyeh be'ez Hashem yisbarach. Hashem should give us the opportunity that b'mher v'yameinu Mashiach will come, finish off the job, and we'll all be zocheh to make that circle again, that loving circle with every single Jew, every single type. And together we'll scream out, Nagila v'nismach habach, we rejoice with you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you for listening.